What's up guys, welcome back to L Rustic Designs. In today's video, we're talking about our Nyle L200 Pro 20-foot container lumber kiln. Check it out. Hey guys, welcome back to L Rustic Designs. It is Saturday and we've got a lot of things to do here at the wood shop. The rain's coming in this afternoon, so we're gonna try and work as fast as possible this morning, and we've got some big announcements. So the first announcement is we are going to be at our first flea market. The market is called the Fancy Flea Market. It's gonna be from Friday through Sunday, April 22nd through the 24th, from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's gonna be located here at the Plant City Strawberry Festival grounds, and you can come out and see us and see all the products that we've made here at L Rustic Designs. We'll have a booth set up there with all of the products that we've made here at the wood shop. We'll also be selling epoxy, epoxy molds and t-shirts, and then we'll also have a flat screen TV set up showing the YouTube channel and trying to spread the word about this YouTube channel. That being said, if you're watching this video, go ahead and smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe because you don't want to miss all of our future videos. So if you're located anywhere close here in Florida, make sure you come out that weekend, April 22nd through the 24th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. I'll have the address and the link to the website in the description below. So the first thing that we need to do today is we need to unload our lumber kiln. We're going to talk to you a little bit about our lumber kiln, and we're gonna load in those camphor slabs that I cut in one of the previous videos. Okay guys, that's enough with the announcements. Let's go ahead and start getting to work before this rain comes. So this is our Nyle L200 Pro lumber kiln. It's a 20-foot shipping container with the Nyle L200 Pro system inside of it. I'm gonna open it up and kind of talk about it to you. So the door's open just like any end loading shipping container. And right now we still have some firewood on the inside. And what's crazy is we turned this kiln off yesterday morning and there's still heat coming out of here. Like it's at least 120 degrees still inside there. That's how well these shipping containers are insulated that you buy from Nyle. You can buy this whole 20-foot shipping container lumber kiln package as one single system from Nyle. I'll have a link in the description below to this product and to their website so you can contact them. Like I said, right now we've got totes of firewood in here. What we've been doing is when we cut the fresh firewood, we put it in here for about a week and it loses over half of its moisture content in just a week alone. We usually crank the setting up to about 130 degrees Fahrenheit for the dry bulb, and it gets this kiln cooking, and just the compressor sucks all the moisture out of the firewood and pumps all the water on the outside. So this firewood is already super light compared to what it was when it went in. The kiln does a really good job sucking that moisture out of the wood and drying it out so that the customers have really good dry firewood. So we've got 5 totes in here. We're gonna get them taken out with the tractor, and once the kiln is cleared out, I'll do a little bit of talking about the kiln, how it works, and kind of run you through a tour. First thing we need to do is raise this baffle system, and I'll talk to you a little bit about this in a second, but to get these firewood totes out, we need to raise it. So drying the firewood in these totes is kind of difficult because the wind doesn't have a way to circulate through all the firewood. It's pretty dense because they're all stacked the way they're stacked. But what's great is the compressor gets so hot, it just cooks the moisture in the firewood and it sucks the moisture out and pumps it outside the kiln. Before we get started, to make things clear, we are in no way professionals on this machine. We just got the lumber kiln not too long ago and we're still learning it, and we always will be learning everything that goes into drying lumber. So far, we've been using the kiln to dry firewood and southern yellow pine lumber. So far, the kiln has done great at drying both of those, but we're really looking forward to cutting and drying slabs and some other things here at the shop. So let's go ahead and start talking about the kiln. So you'll see here we've got a couple different components. This is the Baffle system. The 20-foot container package from Nyle comes with this really nice aluminum baffle system. What it does is it channels all of the air from all these fans up here downwards against the wall, where it then goes through the lumber and into the compressor. So to raise and lower this baffle system, you have a rope and a cleat over here on the side of the kiln. And all you do is you lower it down to where it would be sitting right on top of your stack of lumber. So we've got 5 really nice fans up here that push air this way against the wall of the kiln. The baffle helps channel all that air down and through the lumber. So your lumber will be stacked here and it'll come through the lumber and into the compressor, where then it takes all the moisture and pumps the moisture out of the kiln. When you're done drying, you just pull the cable and raise the baffle system. And you just secure it on the cleat on the side of the kiln. As you can see here, the 20-foot container package comes with 4 really nice kiln carts and a track system. So these kiln carts, as you saw, I can roll a whole tote of firewood, which is really heavy. I can roll the entire thing with one hand because the way the carts are designed is really strong aluminum, and the track system makes it easy for rolling in and out of the kiln. This 20-foot container package came with 4 carts, but you could buy a 5th cart to fit here on the end if you're doing things like firewood. If you're doing things like slabs and lumber, the 4 carts work because you space them out, totaling the entire length of the 20-foot container. What's gonna be really nice is when we build a track system out here outside the kiln, so that way we can roll all of our lumber or whatever we're drying out here, work on it outside the kiln, and then just be able to roll it inside. That's gonna be an entire project and a video in its own, building that cart system for the outside, but it is gonna be really nice to be able to drive in here with the tractor, put our slabs down on the track system, and then roll it into the kiln. If you guys have any questions when it comes to drying lumber or about the L200 Pro 20-foot container kiln package, I would encourage you to contact Nyle. I will have a link in the description below. They have great customer service. They're great guys. I would encourage you to reach out to them with any questions, because once again, we're not professionals and this is not an instructional video. This is me explaining to you the things that I've learned so far with our kiln. The great part about this L200 Pro unit is it has a built-in heater as well as another fan. So it's also heating up the unit and creating more air to flow around the kiln. So what's happening when you close the doors of the kiln, the compressor is heating the air, pushing it up, the fans are pushing it around, it's coming through the lumber and it's going back into the compressor. And it's just a never-ending cycle looping around like that until the lumber ends up completely dry. What's also really nice about the L200 Pro unit is this container package has a completely electronic dry bulb and wet bulb. I know you guys have seen online and some other videos how you have a wet bulb tank over here that you have to fill with water and you have to keep constantly checking it. That's what's great about the L200 Pro is it's all electronic. So you're not tinkering with this tank trying to fill it with water and keep it up to date. Up here in the top, it's hard to see, but there's the dry bulb is up there mounted where the fans push in. So the fans push the air against that dry bulb where it gets a constant reading and it sends it back to the L200 Pro unit, so it's constantly updating in real time. If you want to follow me to the back of the kiln, I'll show you another feature that this 20-foot container package has. So back here in the corner of the kiln, we've got an electronic venting system. So it's tied into the L200 Pro unit, and you basically set the temperature to where this vent opens up and sucks the moisture and also the hot air out of the kiln. Later, when we learn more about the kiln and continue to make videos about it, I'll show you something called hybrid mode, where it works like the dehydration mode, where it takes the moisture and sucks it out, but it also uses this vent at the same time that the compressor is sucking the moisture out. This vent is up here, up high, and it's also blowing moisture out. So it's like dual action where the compressor is working to remove the moisture and the vent is working to remove the moisture, and it really speeds up the process. So the whole container package is actually a pretty simple setup inside the container. I would say the hardest part about this thing is learning the L200 Pro unit. The computer part of this thing is what has been the hardest for us to figure out. But as far as the inside of the kiln, it's a very simple process. Now we're gonna go around to the back of the kiln where I'm gonna show you the L200 Pro unit that is mounted on the back of the kiln. This is the most difficult part about this thing. So when you come back here to the back of the container, this is the L200 Pro unit. It's got a nice clear box that keeps it protected from the weather. When you open the clear cover, this is the unit. Just a simple little screen, but it's a very, very smart computer inside here. What we typically use most of the time is DH mode. And in DH mode, you can set your dry bulb set point. So we usually set for firewood at 132 degrees Fahrenheit, and you can set your wet bulb set point. So the dry bulb set point is the heat. It heats up the kiln to 132 degrees Fahrenheit. And anytime the moisture content in the wet bulb set point is over 85, the compressor turns on and it sucks that moisture out of the kiln. Here you can see the DB overvent, that stands for the dry bulb overvent. And that way when the kiln gets above 133 degrees Fahrenheit, that electronic vent opens and vents out some of the heat to drop it back down to the 132 degrees Fahrenheit. Over here, you see that it says spray set point. As of right now, our 20-foot container model doesn't have the spray hooked up, but in the future, we'll get that hooked up. That'll be a feature where you can introduce moisture back into the kiln whenever you're almost done drying and you wanna settle the wood species. So this is all pretty simple, and DH mode is usually the mode that we use the most. There is a hybrid mode, but we haven't learned enough about it to confidently talk to you about it. Here in a little bit, we'll get the kiln loaded up and we're gonna show you our settings in DH mode on what we would set to dry the lumber. You can see that we have a line that's coming out of the side of the kiln and it's coming back here across the ground. That is the tube for which the moisture gets pumped out of the kiln. You could just have it going into the ground, but I like to have it go into this bucket here. It's a measuring bucket, so I can tell how much water is getting pumped out of the kiln, how quickly. When we first put in the totes of lumber or the fresh firewood, that kiln starts cranking and it starts pumping out over a gallon of water an hour. So that's just a little bit about this 20-foot container kiln from Nyle. We're still waiting for the guys from Nyle to come down so they can teach us more about the kiln and help us build up our knowledge base on everything that goes into wood drying. So now what we need to do is go grab those camphor slabs that I cut in a couple videos ago, and we're gonna get those loaded up in here in the kiln. I think we're gonna throw some wood cookies on top of it, and we'll get this kiln up and running, and then we'll move on to the next project for today. So these are those camphor slabs that you saw me cut a couple videos ago. They're not stickered and they're not stacked properly, but that's okay because we're gonna be taking them off the tractor and we're gonna be loading them into the kiln. As you can see, this is where having a track system outside of the kiln would be super beneficial, where that way we could just stack this all up, set it on the track, and just push it into the kiln. Today, since we don't have the track system built yet, we're gonna have to do this by hand. So we'll take each one of these slabs by hand into the kiln, stack it on the carts, and then once they're all stacked up nice and neat and stickered properly, then we'll get them strapped down, and I'll show you that strapping process that we're gonna use. All right, let's get these slabs off the tractor and start stacking them up in the kiln. So we'll get our track set up evenly to accommodate these slabs. That should be good for now. We'll start grabbing the slabs and see if we need to adjust the carts at all. So we don't have a full load of slabs or lumber to put in this kiln. We're mainly just gonna dry these camphor slabs and probably the cookies. So we're gonna stack it up as best as we can height-wise, because if we were to lay them flat, we're not able to get the baffle system down low enough to try and channel all the air through the lumber. We're gonna start with this one slab like that, and we're gonna work our way up until we get to the other top cut slab. So what Dad is doing right now is laying out stickers. These are small little boards that go between the slabs so that the airflow can make it between each slab. If you didn't watch this video where we cut these camphor slabs, you've got to go watch it. These slabs turned out so beautiful on the inside. I can't wait to get them dried and flattened and see what we can build with them. So one of the most important parts of drying wood is having a good moisture meter so you can tell what moisture content the wood is that you're drying. What I have here is the Orion 950 moisture meter from Wagner Meters. This moisture meter is truly incredible. I'm gonna open it up and I'm gonna show you how it works. So inside the box, you've got a couple little pamphlets like instructions on how to use it. You've got a species book, which is really, really nice. And you've got the moisture meter. You also have a little table for calibrating, but ours is already calibrated, so we don't need to use that. So in this species book, they have pretty much every species of common wood all over the world, but being that this camphor is pretty rare and unique to Florida, it's actually not on this list. but I reached out to Wagner, and within a few minutes they responded and let me know what setting to set this at to test the camphor. Typically, you would go into your species book and you would pick the species that you're looking for. So oftentimes we dry pine. So we'll switch to the pine page, and you just go down and you find what species of pine you're trying to dry. So most of the times we're drying either slash pine, so 0.59, longleaf pine, 0.59, or sand pine, 0.48. So today we're gonna be testing camphor, and the setting for camphor is 0.52. So for the meter, it's actually a really, really nice ergonomic design. It's got this rubber gasket all the way around the meter that makes it nice and easy to hold. It feels very well built. We've been using this meter now for a few weeks and we're very impressed with it. Once again, I don't know everything there is to know about this meter, and it's not an instructional video. This is just me talking to you about how I've used the meter and the things that I've learned so far. So to use it, we typically just turn it on. It's gonna start up. So now it's ready to start testing. We're gonna go to our species and we're gonna change the setting to the species that you're testing. So for this camphor, we're gonna need to be at 0.52. We're just gonna press the power button again. So now it's ready to test your wood, but first we're gonna check our depth setting. So the Orion 950 has two different depth settings. One of them is 1/4 inch, the other one is 3/4 inch. For thinner woods, you're gonna wanna use your 1/4 inch setting, and for thicker woods like these 2-inch thick slabs, we're gonna use our 3/4 inch setting. Press the power button again, and it's ready to test. And as you can see, I'm full of moisture. So on the back of the meter, you've got this square plate. This is the testing area. You're gonna want this square plate to be pressed firmly against the wood that you're testing, and you wanna have minimal airspace between the plate and the wood. So being that these slabs are rough cut and not sanded, there is gonna be some tiny little air gaps between the meter and the wood, but it's still pretty flat and it should work pretty good. So first I'm gonna scrape all this sawdust off the slab. The reason we're scraping the sawdust off is we wanna have a nice clean surface for when we put the tester on. The way the moisture meter is set up, it has a max moisture content of 32%. So like as you can see, my hand is max moisture content. Being that these slabs are green, they're gonna be testing at max moisture, but we'll just go ahead and show you how that works. So you're gonna hold the moisture meter in your hand like this, and you're gonna lay it flat on the wood. And you're gonna get your reading right away. And like I said, this slab being green is testing at max moisture content 32%. That doesn't mean it's exactly 32%, it's actually higher than 32%. That's the max reading that the meter's set on for now. So we can just move this around to all the flat surfaces, and it's gonna give us a good reading wherever we put it on the slab. So these entire slabs are gonna test at max moisture content all over because they're so fresh. But what's exciting is in a couple days after the kiln's been running, we'll go in and we'll take another moisture reading and we'll see how much the moisture is dropping in these slabs. Just to show you how good this moisture meter works, I'm gonna grab a couple different species of wood that we have laying around here, and I'm gonna show you the different moisture contents. So I've got a couple different wood species here. We've got a piece of southern yellow pine, we've got a piece of eastern red cedar, a piece of camphor, and a piece of hickory. These three little slabs, the cedar, the camphor, and the hickory, were cut about 2 weeks ago. So they're not super fresh, but they're also not fully dried. So it'll give us a really good reading on the different moisture contents of these woods. This southern yellow pine has been in the kiln, so it should be completely dry. I'm gonna guess probably around 9%, 10%. But I'm interested to see what these little slabs are reading at. So being that all four of these test subjects are a thin material, we're gonna turn on the moisture meter, we're gonna switch it back to the 1/4 inch depth setting because that's better for these thin materials, and we'll go ahead and start testing. One important thing is when you're testing with the Wagner pinless meter, you wanna make sure that you have an airspace between the wood that you're testing and anything else. This is gonna send a reading down through the wood, and if it's sitting on top of these green camphor slabs, it may possibly pick up the moisture content of the green camphor slabs and not give us an accurate reading of the wood we're wanting to test. So we've got these stickers set up. We'll take our first piece of wood, which is gonna be the hickory. We'll get it set on the stickers. So we're gonna place our moisture meter down firmly on the wood, and we're gonna get a reading. So right now we're reading 23% in that area. We can move the moisture meter around and get different readings. So down here on this end, we're getting 21, 22% down here. In the middle, we're looking at like 22, 23%. And then down on this end, same thing, 19, well, that's actually 18 down there. So your wood is gonna be drier on the ends than in the middle of the wood. But we can basically say that this hickory is still testing around 22 to 23%. For the next species, we've got this camphor slab. Like I said, this camphor slab was cut a couple weeks ago. So we're gonna take our moisture meter. Oh, look at that. The camphor slab is testing around 15. Oh, there's 13 there. What about down here in this crotch area? So we've got 20% down here. And down here, we're looking at 13, 14%. So this camphor slab is pretty close to Florida's EMC, which is around 13.5%. We'll flip it over to the other side and do some tests. So down here in this crotch area, we still have a lot of moisture. We're looking at 26, 27%. But here in the middle part, we're down to 11, 12%. So that's pretty good. This whole part right here is pretty much dry. This still needs some time to dry. Next, we're gonna move on to the red cedar. We're looking at 14% there, 18 there. Come down here to the middle, we're looking at 22%, 19%. Yeah, so this red cedar's still got a decent amount of moisture in it. Overall, it's testing around 20%. The last board we'll test is the southern yellow pine. So that southern yellow pine is testing down at 14, 15%. We'll move down here. 11. What about down on this end? Down here on this end, we're looking at 13 to 14%. So this southern yellow pine has already been through the kiln. This is one of the pieces that we were using for lap siding on the store build. And it's just incredible to see that after coming out of the kiln, it's down to the 13, 14% that it needs to be at for Florida. Whereas all these little fresh slabs that I've made on the bandsaw are still testing around 20%, the camphor's around 15, 16%, and the hickory's up there at like 20%. So they still need some time to dry. So that's a little rundown of how the Orion 950 moisture meter from Wagner Meters works. We're gonna be including this in a lot more videos in the future. Once we get more knowledge about drying process and make more videos about our lumber kiln, you'll be seeing this a lot in all of our videos. This moisture meter is truly incredible, guys. I have a link in the description below. If you have a sawmill or if you're doing anything at a wood shop where you need dry wood and you need to test the moisture, I would highly encourage you to invest in one of these Orion 950s. This thing's incredible and we can't wait to keep using it here at the shop. So it looks like the rain's moving in, so we're gotta get to work quick, guys. We're gonna get the rest of these slabs put in the kiln, get the kiln turned on so we can transition to getting ready for the fancy flea market. So we've got that log stacked and stickered. We're gonna push the carts into the kiln a little bit. We'll get another cart placed underneath this end piece down here, and then we'll strap it all down so it's nice and tight, and we'll see if we can get those cookies up on top of there. So we're gonna use this banding nylon and this nylon banding gun and some clamps to band the whole log together so that it holds it nice and tight while it's drying. So we got all those camphor slabs loaded into the kiln. We also threw those cookies that we cut with the world's most powerful chainsaw in here. The baffling is gonna be a little bit tricky to make sure that all the airflow goes through the cookies and the slabs, but we'll show that process here in a second. I'm gonna lower down the baffles. It's gonna be close, but I don't think the wood's gonna be tall enough for the baffles to hit so that it funnels all that air around through the wood. We may have to use some plywood to rig up and try to get that air to go down the baffles, hit the wall, and come around through all the wood. Being that these slabs are 2-inch thick and that these cookies are like 3 to 4 inch thick, we're probably gonna have this stuff in here for at least 3 to 4 weeks. We'll show you what temperature setting we're gonna set it on here in a little bit, but let me see if I can get this baffle put down and rig up the proper airflow. So as I expected, the wood was just a little bit too short for the baffles to rest against. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab some plywood boards and we're gonna rig it up in there to try and get all the air to come around and through the wood instead of over top of the wood. So the goal is just to get all this air to come down and go through the wood instead of through these gaps over top of the wood. So by putting all these boards here over that gap, it's gonna force that air to go down through the wood. So we have our baffle system rigged up. We can close this door and see, I think there's still gonna be a gap here on this end. Yeah, there's gonna be a gap right here, so we added one more board because when we closed the door, there was a gap. And that's gonna fill that gap pretty much perfectly. One of the things that's nice about the L200 Pro unit is it comes with 2 of these electric probes that you take a 1/2-inch drill bit, you insert these probes into the wood, and you can monitor the temperature of the wood from the back of the unit. It would be nice if these probes could measure the moisture content as well, but as of right now, they can only measure the temperature. In the future, there may be an upgrade where you can insert a probe and you can watch the moisture content from the outside of the kiln. Since this slab is so thick, I'll go ahead and drill a hole into it and I'll insert this probe, and that way we'll be able to monitor that core temperature of this slab as the kiln's heating up. So we've got our hole drilled. Now we're just gonna insert the probe into that hole. And now we'll be able to see what the internal temperature of this slab is from the outside. Everything's set up the way it needs to be inside the kiln. I'm gonna close up the doors and we'll go around to the back and I'll show you what setting we're gonna use. So here on the back of the kiln, we have our control unit. We're gonna go in and we're gonna go to DH mode. We're gonna set our dry bulb temperature to 110. Okay, we'll set our wet bulb set point to 85. So anything higher than 85 will turn on the compressor and suck out the moisture. Our over vent will automatically update itself once I start the kiln, and we don't need to worry about the spray. We're gonna go back to the main menu. Inside the kiln right now, we've got an 83 Fahrenheit dry bulb, and we're looking at a 70 Fahrenheit wet bulb. Once this kiln turns on, this dry bulb is gonna work its way up to 110 Fahrenheit. This wet bulb is probably gonna go up over 100 Fahrenheit because that lumber that we have in there is very, very wet. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna hit start. It's gonna tell you that this action is going to start the kiln and to make sure the doors are closed. Hit OK, and our kiln is running. So we're gonna go ahead and secure, and now we just set it to go. So we've got all of our slabs loaded up in the kiln. We've got the kiln up and running, and that's where they'll be for the next 3 to 4 weeks until they're fully dry. If you guys know anything about wood drying or have any tips for us, go ahead and drop them in the comment section below. Obviously, we're still learning and we've got a lot to learn. So if you have anything that can help us, go ahead and put it in the comment section below. Like I said in the beginning of the video, if you guys have any questions about this Nyle L200 Pro 20-foot container kiln, reach out to Nyle. There's a link in the description below. They're great people. We've been really glad to work with them. If you have your own sawmill, you should really look into getting one of these Nyle lumber kilns. If you guys like this video, as always, smash that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for all the future videos, and we'll see you on the next one.